I'm Jack, 32, a corporate worker. I work in the sales department of a major trading company. Not to brag, but I've always been the top performer in sales. I believe my competitive nature has played a big part in that. It was after I started my job that I realized my talent. This month, I'm leading the pack in sales again. I let out a sigh of relief seeing everything going as planned and closed my computer screen. The same routine every day. For me, that's the best reward. I just can't find enjoyment in major changes to my daily routine. I think only laid-back folks can do that. I feel sorry for those who say I need some excitement. They don't appreciate the value of everyday life. But then, someone who shook up my routine appeared last spring. In April, the person transferred to our department was a younger female boss named Lucy. Her title was Assistant Sales Manager, which made her my immediate superior. It's not like I hold a grudge against her, but I've always struggled with women in general. There's a reason for this. My mom left my dad and me behind and ran away from home. Please don't get me wrong, it's not like my dad had a drinking problem or was violent or anything. On the contrary, he was often sick. And it was my mom who took care of him. Whether she got tired of caring for him, I don't know. When I came home as a middle schooler, she left a note and was gone. Take care of your dad for me. That was all that was written in the letter from my mom, and I remember being stunned by it. More than sadness or loneliness, anger towards my mom welled up inside me, and I struggled to keep it down. Dad never blamed Mom for leaving and just accepted it as if it were the most natural thing in the world. And so, it was just the two of us, me and my dad, starting our life together. Dad couldn't work and relied on public assistance. From high school, I started working part-time jobs, dedicating myself to supporting our household and my dad. There was no time for me to enjoy a typical youth. Never wanting pity from anyone, I became adept at putting on a brave face, no matter what happened. I must have been a tough kid, I guess. Sadly, after a prolonged illness, Dad passed away 2 years ago. When I was freed from caring for my dad, I was at a loss for what to do next. I felt as if my worth had vanished. I immersed myself more in my work, probably due to the loss of my dad. You're always top in sales, Jack. I believe the first time Lucy, who has been assigned in April, spoke to me was around this time. It felt like she was making small talk, and to be honest, it felt tedious. I put in the effort, that's all. I didn't mean to be modest, but most people accept that response. Of course, otherwise, achieving such results would be impossible. In front of the sales performance posted on the whiteboard, Lucy said that and nodded in agreement. Every time she nods, I catch a whiff of the sweet perfume she's wearing. Let's do our best this week too. She gave a light pat on my shoulder and headed back to her desk. There was a silver ring on her left ring finger. I was slightly taken aback when I found out she was married. She's younger than me, and well, she doesn't give off that married vibe. Not so domestic, I just felt like that. I found out the reason for this purely by chance. Every office has its share of gossip mongers. And ours was no exception, with many relishing in the rumors during their breaks. Today, one of the clerks was proudly sharing some juicy news she had overheard in the break room. And I just happened to overhear it. According to the office clerk, it seems that Lucy's husband passed away due to illness the year before last. This means she is a widow now. I heard it all happen so fast, from the time the illness was discovered to his passing. Hearing that, I stepped away from the break room. It was a bit surprising to think that someone as cheerful as Lucy had such a past. But then, another thought crossed my mind. Why didn't she leave her husband, I wondered. Was it because his decline was so rapid, from treatment to demise? I believed that if her husband had struggled for a long time and had not died, Lucy would have left him. I know it's a biased thought, but this is something I know from my experience, and I believe it's the truth. What's wrong? Your coffee is going to get cold. Lost in these thoughts, I completely forgot to sip my coffee. By the time Lucy, who was next to me, pointed it out, I hardly took a sip, but it was already lukewarm. I'm sorry, I was spacing out a bit. Apologizing for being lost in thought during work, Lucy looked at me puzzled. Then the next moment, she smiled brightly. Don't be silly. Everyone needs a break. No need to apologize. Her smile seemed dazzling to me. It was a wonder how she could smile like a sunflower blooming in summer. I awkwardly smiled back, but it probably looked like a ventriloquist's dummy smiling. Don't force a smile. Save those smiles for the customers. After she jokingly said that, I covered my mouth with one hand. Feeling as if everything was being seen through, I felt restless and uncomfortable. I'm sorry. I'm not good at smiling. Unintentionally, my true feelings slipped out. I had never said such a thing to anyone before. I was surprised at myself for revealing my true feelings to Lucy. Oh, is that so? For me, I find it hard to cry. Lucy gently brushed aside my true feelings and said so. It felt as if we were exchanging our vulnerabilities. Maybe she was trying to be fair since she had inadvertently heard my weakness. In all things, Lucy was always like this. She treats everyone equally, lends a listening ear, gives encouragement, and brightens the atmosphere in our department by bringing everyone together. Lucy's reputation has soared not just within our team but across the whole department. By the time seeing her smile every morning had become the highlight of my day, something unbelievable happened to me. At the end of the month, I was left standing before the posted sales results. For the first time, I was in second place in sales performance. I couldn't hide my dismay, wondering if there had been some kind of mistake. The one who surpassed me and jumped to the top was a junior who had been hovering around the middle of the pack until last month. I have noticed they'd been putting in the effort after receiving advice from Lucy recently, but I never, not in a million years, thought they would surpass my sales performance. As I heard the cheers of my junior behind me, I kept telling myself to stay calm. Losing my composure was not an option. I must keep a straight face, so as not to be pitied. The nails of my tightly clenched fist were digging into my palm. The one who gently wrapped around that fist was Lucy's slender finger. A fleeting moment as she passed by. Her fingertips seemed to soothe me, as if to say, "It's okay." Involuntarily, I looked up. Without looking back at me, Lucy walked straight toward my junior and congratulated him. The touch of her fingers lingered on my fist. It felt as if her feelings were flowing into me through her fingertips, a strange sensation. The tension of my clenched fist gradually eased. I could feel my strained emotions lightening. I won't lose next month. I conveyed my genuine feelings to my junior. The words came out naturally, probably thanks to Lucy. Lucy looked at me and smiled brightly. It was her usual radiant smile like a sunflower. After work that day, we finally had Lucy's welcome party within our team. The team's party planner had booked a stylish Spanish restaurant. Our team always had high attendance at these parties, thanks to his efforts to find various interesting places for every gathering. This time too, almost everyone was attending. We enjoyed exotic dishes and delicious wine. Under normal circumstances, I'd probably enjoy myself more, but I was a bit different tonight. I couldn't stand the fact that my sales performance was surpassed by a junior colleague. The supposed relief I felt was stirred awkwardly again by drinking alcohol. This feeling of irritation shrouded my chest and invited a worse state of drunkenness. I'm definitely not a bad drunk. I'm always properly paced, and getting disorderly is unthinkable. But tonight was different. I couldn't disguise my emotions and overtly avoided Lucy. "Please, drink over there. Don't mind me. Don't worry, I'll work harder from next month." I confront Lucy, who just sat next to me and started talking, with slurred words. "Come on, don't dislike me that much." Lucy, trying to calm me down, seemed to act superior even though she's younger, and it irritated me more. "How did you even get promoted? There's no way you can get promoted while taking care of a sick husband, can you?" My mouth wouldn't stop in my drunken state. I know I'm in trouble in my head, but harsh words just keep spilling out of my mouth. "Oh, you seem to know a lot. I'm a more capable woman than you think, Jack." Lucy brushes off my sarcasm with a complacent attitude. Even that attitude started to anger me. "Jack, you struggle with women, don't you?" she said with a mischievous grin, making my heart race, and I unintentionally get lost for words. "See, bullseye, spot on, right. That's why whatever you say, Jack, it's fine by me." Taking a sip of red wine, Lucy said it with a straight face. This is her true feeling. It's like she thinks she knows everything about me. "What do you know about me, being younger and all?" I find myself getting defensive. The room's atmosphere suddenly turns icy. It seems my voice was louder than I thought. "I do know. Too bad. You don't like me, do you, Jack?" Sticking out her tongue in a teasing manner, Lucy seems to provoke me. I, irritated, unintentionally stood up from my chair. Lucy looks up at me with challenging eyes. "I never said such a thing. I can tell even if you don't say it." She pouts her lips. Somehow, she seems a bit sullen. After a few similar exchanges, I was the one who lost my cool first. I drained the wine I had in my hand in one go and leaned towards Lucy, shouting, "That's what I'm saying. I like you." In that moment, Lucy, with wide open eyes, looked up at me. Being able to surprise her, I felt satisfied. In the next moment, I blacked out. The next day, I woke up in my room with a hangover, holding my aching head. I was so embarrassed about making a fool of myself at the party that I wished the ground would swallow me up. Alone, I tossed and turned in bed. "Huh, you're awake. Huh?" What I heard from the kitchen was Lucy's voice, and I was so startled it felt like my heart might jump out of my mouth. "Jack, you passed out after that. Tom and I brought you back. We missed the last train, so we had to impose." Approaching with a bottle of mineral water in one hand, Lucy looked somewhat refreshing without makeup. "I'm so sorry." While accepting the bottle of mineral water, I apologized for my disgraceful behavior last night. Lucy smiled warmly and said, "It's all right." "Oh, but I also have something to apologize for." "What is it?" Lucy, looking a bit guilty, clasps her hands together toward me. What on earth could she have done to me? If it's about what happened at the party, I really don't remember anything. I fought to turn it off as it was left on, but then a DVD started playing. I saw cute Jack. She sticks out her tongue and says, "I'm sorry." I, startled, glanced toward the TV. On the table in front of the TV, an old DVD case was carelessly left. Recalling what was being watched, I feel embarrassed. Knowing that Lucy saw such a thing, I really wish I could just find a hole and hide in it. "You saw it, huh? Feel free to laugh. A grown man doing something like that." I uttered such words in despair. "Why, I think it's wonderful. Remembering and valuing family is a wonderful thing, isn't it?" I managed a wry smile as she asks me this, her face filled with curiosity. What Lucy happened to see was a home video taken when I was a child. It documented a time when I was most happy. My dad was still somewhat well, my mom was at home, and I was laughing innocently, oblivious to any hardships. This was filmed during a family outing to watch the blooming flowers, and my grandfather was the one shooting the video. He probably offered to handle the camera so that the 3 family members could be framed in the shot. I was so young, adoring my parents, not having the slightest inkling that this happiness would crumble. Sometimes I watch this video to remind myself that I too had happy moments. To not forget that I was once, like others, a person who was loved. This wonderful family fell apart a few years later. I felt the urge to tell Lucy everything. Then, about my father's illness and my mom running away. How I couldn't forgive myself for feeling relieved more than sad when my father passed away. Normally, I'm good at putting on a facade, but with Lucy, only honest words come out. She was quietly listening to my life story. After finishing telling everything, I take a sip of mineral water. No wonder you despise women. Lucy quietly opens her mouth. After listening to my life story, Lucy showed neither signs of pity nor ridicule. Her face accepted all the facts as they were. Can I share my story too? When my husband died, I felt relieved. At her unexpected confession, I inadvertently let out, "What? It was really hard until he passed." Knowing the end was near, but having no other choice, I don't know how much I cursed God. Lucy smiles a bit sarcastically. That smile is twisted, totally different from her usual cheerful one. I wonder which one is the real her. I wanted to know more about her. Did you feel relieved when your husband passed away? I'm aware that it's an insensitive question, but I wanted to confirm it with her. Yes, I did. I felt liberated. Lucy clarified that the liberation she felt was not from taking care of him. She seemed to think she was liberated from the fear of her husband being gone and the pity from those around her. Her husband's final moments weren't peaceful, it seems. He suffered in pain until the end, crying out his desire to live. Lucy described his last moments as hellish. It was too much to face directly. I wanted to run away from there, to block my ears. Hearing the prolonged beep of the heart monitor, she realized, it's over. It was an insane moment. Reminiscing, she tremored slightly. I couldn't start a family with him. I couldn't let him, who loved children, become a father. Her only regret, Lucy concluded her story. I felt as if I had learned a secret hidden within her. Maybe she didn't ridicule me because she had experienced significant loss. Loss teaches you things, something Lucy knows firsthand. I wanted to say something comforting, but no words came to my mind. See you on Monday, then. Lucy left after saying this. After she left, I got out of bed to check the kitchen and found a pot of easy-to-digest vegetable soup. On the table was a note, "Heat it up and eat." The refrigerator was stocked with sports drinks. Lucy's thoughtfulness, her affection, was appreciated. From this day on, Lucy's presence in my life grew increasingly significant. I found myself hoping that she felt the same. However, when I went to work on Monday, her attitude was no different than usual. I was taken aback, thinking we had a special connection, sharing secrets no one else knew. Boss and subordinate. Nothing more, nothing less. Such a relationship continued until the next spring. It was almost a year since Lucy was transferred. When spring comes and the cherry blossoms are in full bloom, I feel lighthearted every year. Perhaps my body remembers the joyful times. Sunday was the anniversary of my father's passing, so I went to visit his grave. I cleaned it neatly and offered fresh flowers. I lit a candle and a cigarette, his favorite, together. I remember my father sneaking cigarettes, despite doctors' warnings. He would laugh while smoking in his sick bed, saying, "This is the one thing I can't give up." Thinking back, he might have been a strange father. I wonder what kind of life he would have led if he hadn't been sick. I watched the smoke from the candle and cigarette rise into the air, imagining his life. Usually, I would feel more depressed visiting this grave, but not this time. The lake inside my heart was still. I felt very flat, quiet, and calm. I think it was the first time I prayed with such feelings. I realized something is changing within me. My obsession with being the top in sales has relaxed, fluctuating between first and third place. I'm no longer disturbed by it. I'm even surprised at myself for being able to sincerely rejoice at my junior's growth and colleagues' efforts. She has undoubtedly changed me. Lucy's presence has changed me. I haven't told her, but I'm truly grateful to her from the bottom of my heart. Later, that confession video shown to me by a colleague at a drinking party is now a funny story. "Huh, Jack? No way. Don't you think this is too much of a coincidence?" Suddenly, a voice called out, and when I turned around, there was Lucy. She is holding flowers for the offering. "Huck, Lucy, is your family's grave here too?" Lucy shared that it's her husband's monthly Memorial Day. Somehow, I find myself helping out with the cleaning. Lucy carefully polishes the tombstone, offers candle and a lit cigarette, just like I do. My dad was the same, cigarettes. As I mentioned this, Lucy smiles and says, "Really? Such selfish people, really," despite being sick, as she lights up her second cigarette. They can smoke all they want in the afterlife. Laughing freely, Lucy looks up at the smoke rising to the sky and murmurs something to that effect. Her profile looks so bright and cheerful. Perhaps Lucy has also managed to sort out her feelings. Jack, ready to head back, fancy a walk together. Returning the ladle and bucket to the fountain in the precincts, Lucy invites me for a walk. It's a beautiful day, a walk sounds nice. Hearing my response, Lucy guided me to a park near a temple, known for its beautiful cherry blossoms. The fully bloomed cherry blossoms were visible even from afar. There were many people enjoying the cherry blossoms, and with stalls set up, it had a festive atmosphere. I narrowed my eyes at the familiar place, feeling a sense of nostalgia. "You remembered?" I mumbled inadvertently. I would never forget. I decided that day that we would come here together when the flowers bloomed. Lucy says while looking at the cherry blossoms. While slowly walking among the blossoms, I steal glances at her profile. Seemingly noticing my gaze, our eyes suddenly met, causing me to involuntarily stop in my tracks. I can't stand it anymore. I hate waiting. Suddenly, she puffed out her cheeks and stamped her foot. Faced with her childlike behavior, I found myself feeling flustered. What upset her? I'm sorry. I apologize just in case, and the words of apology just spill out. Seeing me like this, Lucy puffs her cheeks again. "Really, you are hopeless." Can I accept that confession? You did say you liked me at the bar, right? At the sudden confession, I inadvertently nod in agreement. I don't want to be your lover. I want to be your family, Jack. I want you to be a part of my family. Lucy says with a serious expression. I think, ideally, I, as the man, should have said it first. I feel really bad for not having the courage. I bet Lucy had decided to confess to me in this park during the cherry blossom season. Are you sure about me? I'm not a good guy. I want you. You cherish your wonderful family. That's why I want you, Jack. She hugged me tightly like a child. Her body was soft and slim, and I could smell her usual perfume. I'm sorry. Let me say it too. Please be my family, Lucy. At my words, Lucy tightened her arms around me. This must be her way of responding. We both carry a great sense of loss. Knowing this, I think we can cherish each other. I'll cherish you for a lifetime. I said it with all my feelings. I'm sure there's no one else in the world to whom I would dedicate these words besides her. How did you find today's story? Hitting the subscribe and like button will motivate me to create more. I'm also looking forward to reading your comments. See you in the next video. My name is Michael. I'm a 30-year-old single man. Currently, I work for a certain online media outlet where I write various articles as a journalist. By the way, our company is celebrating its 10th anniversary, and at present, we have 12 writers, including me. I've been with this company for almost a year now. Before that, I was a freelance writer for a large corporation. However, a year ago, I decided to leave my corporate job and join this online media company. Looking back, I genuinely believe that move was a turning point in my life. At that time, my decision even led to my then-girlfriend breaking up with me. According to my ex-girlfriend, she couldn't believe I would leave a stable job at the large corporation to chase my dream. Given that I had been considering marrying her, I sometimes doubted my decision back then. However, now I'm confident that I made the right choice. Although my income is now roughly half of what I made at my previous job, I find much more satisfaction in my work as a full-time journalist here. During my first year, I mainly wrote anonymous commissioned articles, which served as both learning and training. In my current job at the online media outlet, once your skill is recognized, you can have your own column with your name on it, but before that, you need to build your credentials. Thanks to one of our executives, Susan, I was able to steadily build those credentials. Michael, good job today. We've received a request from a travel agency. Can you handle it? With those words, Susan handed me the materials from the travel agency. When she approached, I could faintly smell the scent of soap from her, which made my heart race a bit. I have a sensitive nose, and I'm not a fan of strong perfumes, so I really like the natural scent emanating from Susan. Yes, in fact, I've always admired her. So naturally, whenever I'm around her, I get extra enthusiastic. Of course, I'll start writing immediately, I replied, and immediately began typing away on my computer. Susan is 33, 3 years older than me, and she was involved in the startup of our company. From what I've heard, our female CEO was Susan's senior in college. The CEO had recognized Susan's exceptional computer skills and scouted her to be an executive when establishing the online media. The CEO's intuition was spot on, as, in its 10th year, our online media now has over 1 million readers and is popular among internet users. Nowadays, we get regular requests from major corporations, and the company's prospects look brighter than ever. When I first joined the company, I was feeling down after my breakup, but upon meeting Susan, I was immediately captivated by her charm. Susan boasts a model-like figure and is a sophisticated beauty. With her small face, smooth fair skin, and short black hair, she stood out in the office, especially with her vibrant makeup. Moreover, she is an extremely capable woman. She found suitable tasks for our company from the vast information online and consistently secured contracts for us. I also believe that my commissioned articles were recognized because she assigned jobs that suited me. In fact, all the writers in the company often say that it's because of Susan's leadership that we can work efficiently and effectively. Thanks to her sense of design and computer skills, our online media has such a user-friendly and attractive design, which has garnered so many fans. I truly respect Susan and can't help but admire her as an amazing woman. But realistically speaking, there's no way a regular employee like me could be a suitable match for an executive like her. If I were to show even a hint of interest, it would create an awkward atmosphere, making it difficult for me to continue working there. Susan herself is known to always maintain a professional demeanor without showing any vulnerabilities. In the office, she rarely talks about her private life. Even if there's a get-together, she doesn't drink and never joins for the after-party. Rumor has it that a few years ago, a male colleague stalked her. Even though she showed clear signs of disinterest, the guy was so persistent. His behavior escalated to the point where the company couldn't ignore it any longer, leading to his dismissal. Since he was an excellent worker, Susan apparently felt responsible for the outcome. After that incident, she has been very cautious in her interactions with male colleagues. Approaching her aggressively would only cause significant inconvenience. That's why I've always wanted to maintain our professional relationship of boss and subordinate. She's out of my league, always out of reach. But I always comforted myself by saying that just being by her side was enough. However, one day, my relationship with Susan began to change drastically. Suddenly, I was called into the CEO's office. Wondering what was going on, I headed to his office with a racing heart. The CEO greeted me with a big smile. "Michael, it's almost been a year since you became our exclusive writer. You've improved a lot, and I think it's time for you to have your own column. Both Susan and I have high expectations for you." I was ecstatic hearing the CEO's words. I had always wanted to make a name for myself, and now the chance had finally come. Without hesitation, I accepted the CEO's offer, and soon after, I met with Susan in a conference room to discuss the new column. Seeing her face to face made me nervous, but Susan was calm as usual. "Congratulations on the new column, Michael. I have high expectations for you." "Thank you. I'll do my best to meet your expectations." We then discussed the format and content of the column in detail. Given my love for traveling, we decided that I would write a weekly travel essay. When I mentioned I wanted to use my pen name Emerald Wanderer, Susan's attitude suddenly changed. Emerald Wanderer, you're using that pen name." It wasn't like Susan, who was usually unflappable, to be so surprised. "What's going on?" Only knowing her usual cool demeanor, I felt a jarring contrast seeing her wide-eyed expression and slowly opened my mouth. "Yes, that's the name I want to use. Is there a problem?" Susan quickly shook her head. "No, not at all. It's just a lovely name. Emeralds are precious gems, and Wanderer is like a traveler, right? It's a wonderful pen name. I'm looking forward to your articles, Michael." Upon saying that, Susan left the conference room with a spring in her steps, wearing a bright and genuine smile. It was quite surprising to see Susan, who usually only gives a courteous grin, show such a warm and genuine smile. I returned to my office in a daze. I wasn't the only one surprised by Susan's behavior. My colleagues were also talking about it, saying things like I've never seen Susan in such a good mood before. I love Susan's usual cool demeanor, but seeing her smile like that truly warms my heart. For her sake, I'm gonna put my all into writing great articles. With a strong resolve, I dedicated myself entirely to the series from that day. Susan's instincts were spot on, and my column was well received by the readers. Furthermore, Susan herself praised my articles, which sent me over the moon. "Reading your articles makes me feel like I'm actually on a trip. You're very good at describing scenery. I'm seeing you in a whole new light." "Thank you. I'm honored to hear that." While I've had experience getting praised for my work in the past, there's a special kind of joy being directly appreciated for my own original articles rather than contracted work. Ever since I was given the column, I've been able to engage in more personal conversations with Susan and enjoy my days even more, but that doesn't mean we've become closer outside of work. At the end of the day, Susan values me only for my work. If I misread that and try to force a personal bond, she'd probably be put off for sure. Considering our small company size, I knew I had to tread carefully. Days passed with my feelings for Susan growing, but my inability to express them gnawed at me. Then, a turning point came my way. Out of the blue, my mother brought up the topic of matchmaking date. Apparently, my date was 2 years younger than me, and it was one of our relatives who had suggested the match. When I heard this, images of Susan immediately flashed through my mind, but she wasn't my girlfriend or anything. Maybe I should give up on a relationship that seemed to have no future and explore this new opportunity. Wanting to get advice, I decided to confide in a close colleague. After work, I invited him to a bar, and as we enjoyed our drinks, I told him about the matchmaking date idea, and he listened with great interest. You know, Susan always seems so focused on work and doesn't appear to be interested in relationships, and she's a top executive. We're in different leagues. If things didn't work out, it might make things awkward for you at the company. Maybe it's a good idea to consider this matchmaking date thing. Sitting across a table from him, I nodded occasionally while maintaining eye contact. Suddenly, his face turned white as a sheet. What's the matter? I wondered. When I turned around, I saw Susan, seemingly on her way out of the restaurant. Had she overheard our conversation? I saw her walking with her head down, looking uncomfortable, which made me freeze on the spot. Just my luck. Running into her at a bar and, to make matters worse, having her overhear my true feelings about her. Talk about bad luck. After that incident, neither my colleague nor I felt like drinking much, and we decided to call it a night early. My colleague tried to comfort me, saying, "Don't sweat it," but I couldn't shake off my gloom. I thought we have gotten closer, but how should I face her at work now? Nevertheless, I couldn't skip work, so with a heavy heart, I headed to the office the next day. Sure enough, Susan was acting differently, deep in thought when she entered the conference room. She was probably wondering how to interact with me. However, we couldn't avoid the meeting, and as I was pondering how to proceed, Susan suddenly blurted out, "Michael, I might be out of line, but I really don't want you to be set up on any dates." Huh? I would have never dreamt of hearing such words from Susan. I was taken aback, but she had even more shocking news to share. "Michael, since high school, you've been someone special to me. When I heard your pen name, I immediately realized you were the same boy who praised the magazine I made." "Oh, the one with the camellia on the cover. Of course, I remember." Hearing Susan's words brought back memories from 15 years ago. Back when I was in junior high, I visited a cultural fair at my dream high school and headed straight for the literature club's booth. The club's magazine was of such high quality that I couldn't believe it was made by high school students. It had a beautiful brown cover with a black camellia drawing, giving it an air of classic literature. On the back cover, the designer's name was written as Camellia. As I was about to purchase the magazine, a nerdy-looking girl with long black hair and glasses sat at the counter. And on her chest, she wore a badge with the name Camellia. Recalling that memory, I looked deeply into Susan's eyes. In that moment, the image of the literature club girl and Susan before me began to merge. Although she wasn't wearing glasses anymore, and her appearance had changed considerably, I could still catch glimpses of the young girl in Susan. Back then, when you were buying the club magazine, you complimented it, saying, "This is a fantastic magazine." Even though I was in the literature club, I had no real talent in writing, so I mainly focused on the design of posters and magazines. Hearing your words at the time, I felt a mix of emotions. But then, you said, "If you can produce such a wonderful magazine, that's amazing." The moment I saw this cover, I just knew I had to have it. Hearing that, for the first time, I felt like someone truly recognized and appreciated me. Even if I didn't have the gift of writing, it gave me hope that I could still contribute in other ways. Susan. The words I said to Susan 15 years ago were genuine. Even if an article is well written, without that something that catches the reader's attention, they might never discover it. In that sense, I deeply felt Susan was a crucial bridge between the work and its readers. It felt miraculous to be working with her now, and my heart swelled with emotion. Tears glistening in her eyes, Susan spoke again. After I graduated, my younger sister still attended the school, so I asked her to buy me the Literature Club's magazine during the cultural fair. In it, I was captivated by the work of a student with the pen name Emerald Wanderer. My sister, who wasn't involved in the club, didn't know who that was, so the next year, I went to the cultural fair myself. And there I found a boy with the name Emerald Wanderer. I was shocked to find out he was the same boy who comforted me a few years back. I was thrilled that he had joined the same high school and literature club. I wanted to approach him but saw he was surrounded by friends and looked busy, so I couldn't. The next year, I looked for another chance to meet him during the cultural fair, but I couldn't find him. I did learn his real name was Michael from another club member, but until I heard your pen name for this series, I hadn't realized that young boy was you. After all, you've grown so much taller and slender since high school. I see. That was why Susan acted differently when she learned my pen name. It's no wonder she didn't notice, given the tremendous change I had in college where I grew 4 inches taller and lost 22 pounds at the same time. Then, Susan, with her cheeks flushed, looked at me with determination. I've always been passive in love, but when I heard you were going for the matchmaking date, Michael, I thought I couldn't let things stay that way. I like you, Michael, please, stay by my side. I want to keep reading your work forever. I never thought the usually cool Susan would approach me this assertively. I too honestly expressed my feelings. I like you too, Susan. Ever since I met you, you've been special to me, and just being by your side makes me happy. Michael, you've always been a pillar of strength for me. Having you accept me this way makes me so happy, but it's kind of embarrassing, because today, unlike before, I spilled my true feelings. It feels weird. Saying this, Susan blushed, her white cheeks as red as a camellia flower. I felt bad for feeling this, but seeing her like that was refreshing. She's incredibly cute. The contrast of her current and previous image left me in awe, and I couldn't take my eyes off her. From then on, Susan and I officially started dating. Thanks to her, my column was going really well, and my pay had also increased. 3 years has passed after I started working at the company. Now that I finally sorted my work and life, I decided to propose to Susan. Seeing the camellia-inspired design of the engagement ring I chose, Susan laughed amusedly. What a unique design. Where do you find it? Yeah. When I saw a magazine featuring a camellia design, I thought it was such a beautiful flower. It left me with an unforgettable impression, and I've always wanted to immortalize it. Susan has always been and still is the woman I look up to, and there are still many times when I feel I can't match up to her. In a way, she'll always be out of my league. But that's why I cherish her even more and want to become a man worthy of her. I channel that desire into motivation for my writing. I personally think this kind of love is perfectly fine. So, after 2 years of dating, Susan and I got married, and we still work hand in hand today. The color of the flower I saw that day hasn't faded, and if anything, my affection for Susan only grows day by day. A rural town where I was transferred to. I was sent away because I'm incompetent. That's what I thought. The one who reached out to me was a beautiful boss. I'm Ted, 28 years old. I work for a company that manufactures welfare equipment, but I was transferred from the head office and came to this rural town. I wanted to be of help to someone. That's why I joined this company. I was devoted to developing products for welfare equipment, but it seems that I, who was sent away, was indeed incompetent. When I entered the modest-sized office compared to the headquarters, there's a friendly atmosphere all around. So you're Ted, huh? Nice to meet you. I'm Sarah, assigned to assist you until you get accustomed. Feel free to ask if there's anything you don't understand. Sarah, 30, introduced herself in a composed manner. She's assigned to mentor me at this branch. How do I know her age? An older, seasoned clerk who's been at this branch for long told me. She looks stern, but is actually kind and hardworking. Very strict, but a trustworthy person. And although she's 30, I've never heard any rumors about her personal life. The clerk who told me this was watching Sarah with kind eyes, saying, "She's really a nice person, you know." What's up? Is there something on my face? Indeed, she's very beautiful. As I was staring at Sarah's face with such thoughts, she addressed me, seeming a bit annoyed. "No, it's nothing." I hastily replied, and she just said, "I see," and walked away to attend to a visitor. I went over the documents handed to me by Sarah, ingraining the information about the factory I'll be visiting on a later date in my mind. I never went to the manufacturing factory when I was working at the headquarters. It's my first time visiting a factory since I joined the company, and I'm already nervous. After finishing the unfamiliar tasks at the branch, I work on project proposals to submit to the headquarters. I really wanted to be involved in product development again. I stayed late every day, making sure I'm satisfied with my work, but not to the extent it interferes with my daily tasks. Today, once again, I get home late and grab some quick dinner. I should cook for myself sometimes. I glance at my kitchen, barely used, and mutter about needing to start cooking and managing my nutrition better. After eating and taking a shower, I reach for my bag. What I pull out are the documents for the client I'm visiting tomorrow. I read about the factory's philosophy and the features of the products they handle and drill it into my head. It's impressive. I can see how they care about every single material they use. The kinds of materials listed in the factory's brochure. It surprised me and piqued my interest with their quantity and detailed description of quality. I wondered what kind of process our products made in this factory go through to be completed. Then comes the morning of the day of the external visit. Of all days, the stress from the change of environment seems to be affecting my body. "Good morning, Ted. You don't look so well. Are you okay?" Sarah, usually so strict, seems to be worried and looks at me with concern. "I'm sorry, I'm fine." I acted bravely, not wanting to worry her. "Let's get going, Sarah." But Sarah still looked concerned. I didn't want to cause her any trouble, so I quickly finished preparing for the visit and hurried to leave. "Let me know if you start feeling worse." I guess she could tell I wasn't feeling great. She put some of the company's medicine in my bag, and I could help but smile. It was not just about seeing her kind side, but she also put a bunch of band-aids in there. When will I use those? I was smiling at her innate side. And so, we arrived at the manufacturing factory and completed greetings and the process check. The plant manager who showed us around was very personable. It was evident even to a newcomer like me. Embarrassingly, it was my first time seeing manufacturing process. While much of the manufacturing process involved machines, there were also numerous steps that required a human touch. I was impressed by the number of people involved from planning to manufacturing. Amazing, isn't it? Did you realize manufacturing a product and sending it to market aren't a simple task? Yes, I did. I was overwhelmed to see the manufacturing process for the first time. On the way back, Sarah, speaking to me, mentioned there were things that could be done because it was a branch office, speaking rather profoundly. There are things we can do because it's a branch office. For example, while listening to her, my eyes drifted to the opposite sidewalk. Charlie, a dog on the other side of the crosswalk, looked remarkably like Charlie, the beloved dog of my family, who had recently passed away. "Ted, are you listening? Ted, it's a red light." Before I knew it, I was crossing the street after the dog at a red light. Maybe because I wasn't feeling well, I didn't realize the light had turned red at that time. Ted. Sarah's voice sounded panicked, and as I turned around wondering what was going on. In that moment, I hear the sound of a blaring horn and find myself being shoved by Sarah, who had run in front of me. Next thing I knew, I was lying in the middle of the road, and a little away in the middle of the crosswalk, Sarah was also down. A distraught driver rushed over to Sarah and was calling somewhere. Through the noisy surroundings and blurry consciousness, I understood Sarah had been hit by the car. That's where my memory cut off. The next time I woke up, I was in a hospital, informed by a nurse, who had come to change my IV, about the accident I'd been in and that I only had minor injuries, currently receiving an IV for exhaustion. Is the woman who helped me all right? What worried me was the absence of Sarah. At that time, Sarah had taken the hit instead of me. The image of her collapsing to the ground won't leave my mind. I kept telling myself she must be all right, but her not being here was making me anxious. The not-so-friendly nurse simply said she was fine and left. I felt relieved, at least, knowing she was safe. Once my IV was finished, I went to the room Sarah was in, as I was told. "Sarah, it's dead." I knock and call out, and a woman who looks exactly like Sarah comes out. "Who might you be?" Caught off guard by her harsh tone, I'm pondering how to respond when Sarah helps me from inside the room. "Mia, let him through. He's my co-worker." With that word, the reluctant woman let me in and left to finish her admission procedures. "Sarah, I'm really sorry." The first thing out of my mouth is an apology for causing her injuries. I bowed my head and apologized repeatedly, but Sarah forgave me without blaming me. "I'm glad you're safe, Ted. It's unlike you to cross on a red light. Did you see someone you know?" Sarah had bruises on one leg and a broken arm. Fortunately, her head didn't take a heavy blow, and she regained consciousness quickly. Despite her condition, she's working on her laptop. Faced with her question, my expression clouded over. I saw a dog that looked just like my deceased pet and ran after it. I thought she might get mad for such a reason, but I've never been good at lying, so I told her the truth. I saw a dog that looked exactly like my pet, who passed away recently, and I ran after it despite the light being red. I'm sorry. I was ready to be scolded this time when I apologized for the second time, but she spoke to me again in a gentle voice. "So that's what happened. That must have been tough." I widened my eyes at her unexpected words. It wouldn't be unreasonable if she scolded me for almost getting into an accident chasing a dog, thinking I was messing around. That's what I thought. But Sarah stopped typing on her computer and looked straight at me, and for some reason, my heart started to pound loudly. "I'm done with the paperwork." At this, her returning younger sister shot me a glance as if surprised I was still there. She then quickly shifted her gaze back to Sarah and spoke about how her job was keeping her so busy that she couldn't visit every day, and that while she wanted to help out after the discharge, doing so daily would be difficult. Sarah smiles and says there's no need to worry, but I start to worry too, thinking about the challenges she must be facing trying to live as usual while restricted by her injuries. Knowing that all of this happened because of me, I found myself offering to help before I realized it. "If it's not too much trouble, may I visit and help out with everyday tasks?" The first to react to my sudden proposition was her younger sister. "It would definitely be a problem. I don't want an unknown man coming in and out of my sister's apartment." She seemed to regard me as suspicious and got defensive. However, this reaction was probably natural. If I had a sister and were in the same situation, I would surely react the same way. I just wanted to be of some help, but I needed to think of another way. Thinking this, I was about to retract my earlier words when Sarah made an unexpected remark. "If Mia is busy, maybe I should ask Ted to help. That way, he can also help with work at home." Her younger sister was trying her best to stop it, but with that one sentence from Sarah, my suggestion was accepted. Once she makes up her mind, she doesn't budge, it seems. Her younger sister, appearing resigned, started dividing responsibilities with me. She still had her guards up, so she took charge of the laundry, coming in once a week on rotation, and I would help with the other household chores after finishing work. Until the discharge, I would visit every day, reporting on work and delivering any requested items. If you harbor any inappropriate feelings toward my sister, I will never forgive you. Her younger sister, apparently very protective of her sibling, kept reiterating this point with utmost emphasis. Don't worry, and Sarah, thank you for understanding. I will do my best. Her younger sister, still wary, continued to glare at me, but Sarah bowed her head in a gesture of goodwill and smiled. Every day thereafter, I went to the hospital after finishing work. Wanting not to inconvenience her workplace, I would compile work documents for Sarah and deliver parcels received from her sister. Such days continued for 2 weeks, and Sarah was able to be discharged. Even after being discharged, she needed rehabilitation for a while, and to make sure she faced no inconvenience in her daily life, I continued visiting her every day after work. The only change was, instead of a hospital room, now it was Sarah's room. Ted, thank you for everything. It's been a big help having you cook and clean since it's difficult doing it all alone. At first, I myself was reluctant to enter a woman's apartment every day, but thanks to Sarah seeming not to mind at all, I quickly got used to it. It's only natural since I caused the injury. Really, don't worry about it. Our conversation remained casual, but every day I was impressed watching her work nonstop on her computer, even with her arm impaired. And as the days of visiting continued, I noticed something. Ted, did you put tea in the tea maker? That wasn't me. You made it yourself yesterday. It was, surprisingly, her clumsiness. There were numerous occasions where she nearly fell over nothing, and it had me on edge. Ted, this comedian is a must-watch. If the TV was on, she would immediately switch it to a comedy show and passionately discuss her recommended comedians. Occasionally, she would show an unguarded smile. Day by day, I was beginning to see Sarah as a member of the opposite sex. Of course, not in any inappropriate way. Who was supposed to be the reliable and capable boss, seemed adorable and charming now. You're not doing anything with my sister, are you? Mia, the younger sister who comes over once a week to do laundry, has gotten along better with me than at first, but she still keeps a close eye to make sure I'm not slacking off. Don't worry, I don't have the nerve to do so. True. She's rude sometimes. It turned out Mia and I are the same age. Sarah seemed to wish we got along well. Even when we argued, she would watch us with a contented look. A few days later, after a long period of rehab, Sarah returned to work from today. I look forward to working with you again from today. Entering the office, colleagues had even prepared a cake happily celebrating Sarah's return. Amidst the festive mood enveloping the office, Sarah showed a soft smile I've never seen before. I feel my heart racing once again at that smile. Wondering if it's really racing, I placed my hand over my heart, but I stopped thinking about it as she pulled me into the circle to join the celebration. Even after that, I played a supportive role at the company for Sarah, who hasn't fully recovered. She graciously accepted my offer and has been leading a busy life. After work, I stayed back to work like before. The desire to return to the headquarters was strong, and I couldn't give up. When Mia, Sarah's younger sister, had a calm period at her work, I stopped going to Sarah's house to help out. Although slightly lonely, I allocated that time to work on project proposals, sparing even my sleep. It seems Sarah noticed my state, and one day during work, she took me out, saying she was going to visit clients. Do we not need to conduct the process checks, especially not doing anything in particular, just visiting clients and making small talk? There weren't the usual process checks or submissions of proposals, which seems odd. Today, we just need to show our faces. Observing and talking to the people working at the factory is enough. For Sarah, who's efficient in her work, this was an unusual schedule. I wondered what meaning there is in these seemingly pointless outside rounds. The answer remained elusive as work hours came to an end. Watching colleagues leaving earlier, I, as usual, stayed back alone to work on the proposal. "You're working hard, Ted." For some reason, I could hear Sarah's voice in the now empty office. Sarah, it's unusual for you to be here at this hour. You should go home early. Mia will be worried." She handed me a cup of coffee and sandwich. She practically forced me to eat, saying I should have something. Sarah, who bought one for herself too, starts a conversation before she began to eat. "Ted, I heard you were involved in product development at the headquarters. They say you were really dedicated." That was when I was at the headquarters. Yet why was I transferred to a rural branch? She says she was too curious and asked upper management directly about the reason. You may think you were transferred because you were incompetent, but that's a big misunderstanding. Her approach, as if she's seeing right through my heart, made me stop eating and look straight at Sarah. "The headquarters wants you to build a production line for the products." These were the words said to me when I was transferred, by my boss at the time. But back then, I thought they were just words to console me. I thought it was just a pity to be transferred from the headquarters to a rural branch. I just assumed that and left the headquarters without saying anything. Now thinking back, I felt I was quite rude. That was just a comforting word. I couldn't comprehend, and Sarah continued her words. "Ted, you are a person who can show detailed consideration. I felt it during the period you were helping me. Not everyone can do that." Sarah said, "Even the bosses at the headquarters respected my consideration, and they thought I should be involved in the process of production." I knew the passion for product development, but only by interacting with the makers, we can make better things. And to support such people is what the company values the most, she taught me. Just submitting product plans and having them made. Such a relationship should not be taken for granted. For that reason, they want me to play a role in connecting the company and the makers. That's what Sarah told me. From that conversation, I realized the words my boss said to me at that time were not lies. At the same time, I realized that I was too attached to the title of the headquarters and missed many things. There are realities I wouldn't have known if I hadn't come to the branch. There must be many employees like me. So, Ted, you are not incompetent, you are expected. You were transferred to improve the future of the company. At her last words, tears came to my eyes. Because I thought I was incompetent. The tight string of needing to work hard was slowly cut, and I felt relieved. "I'm glad. I thought there was nothing I could do." While sobbing, Sarah gently stroked my back until I calmed down. And from this day forward, I decided to reconsider the way I work. I stopped sticking to the headquarters and increased my visits to clients. The bosses appreciated my consideration. If that can be of help to someone, save someone, and be reflected in my work, I want to do my best with what I can do now to lead to the development of better products. For that, the exchange of opinions between those who think and those who make is important. A place for interaction through the internet. I succeeded in creating such new connections between companies. However, another change came about within me after that. Despite finding a sense of purpose at work and living fulfilling days, I began to notice an increasing emptiness inside me day by day. I didn't know what it was. but it's always the alone time after I get home that I feel lonely. I've been living alone for a long time. Is it strange to feel lonely now? I wondered, but the moment I turned on the TV, I finally realized what this emptiness was. The channel I had changed unconsciously was showing a comedy show, and the food I made was for two. Yes, I still miss the seemingly short period when I went to help. What I recall is eating across from Sarah, absorbed in the TV on the sofa, and having casual conversations. I finally realized my feelings when I found myself looking for traces of Sarah. Then, I decided to contact her. To ask her if we can meet right now. We decided to meet near Sarah's house, at a stylish wine bar. Sarah, who said she loved wine, responded immediately that she would come. Sarah happily sipped her wine amidst my nervousness. As I was timing when to confess my feelings, she said, "Hey, Ted, when I'm alone in my room, I don't know why, but I feel lonely. I look for traces of when you were there, and I find myself wanting to see you, so I like you. I wanted to tell you, so I did." To my surprise, it was Sarah who confessed her feelings to me. I was also taken aback because our feelings were mutual, and I couldn't help but widen my eyes. "Sarah, I feel the same way. I was lonely, looking for traces of you. I invited you today because I wanted to confess. You beat me to it, but I like you." My confession ended up being a bit messy. However, Sarah, realizing we felt the same way, turned red and broke into laughter, perhaps to hide her embarrassment. I also couldn't help but laugh, and a cheerful atmosphere enveloped us. And from that moment, we officially started dating. 3 years later, there was talk of me transferring to the headquarters, but I declined as I still wanted to focus on my work at the branch. Now, Sarah and I are walking slowly, arm in arm, down a straight path. If you make my sister cry, I won't forgive you. On both sides, friends and family from both our sides and colleagues were gathered, and Mia was clapping her hands in tears. Sarah, wrapped in a beautiful dress, smiled gently at Mia. Yes, we get married. Walking down the aisle, we savored our happiness. A new life is in Sarah's slightly swollen belly. Amidst the blessings, Sarah and I are excited about the happiness that awaits us. She's a female doctor, a lady doctor. If female nurses are the angels in white, then are female doctors, perhaps, goddesses in white. She seems to be around my age, 35, or maybe a bit older. Not bad looking at all. No, far from bad, she had features that were rather appealing to men. However, when I addressed her as doctor, there seems to be no problem at all, she said, without even a hint of a smile, expressionless, scanning through the X-ray and MRI images displayed on the monitor in a rather brusque manner. Using an ambulance. Doctor, the ambulance was called by the other party. Jess, take care. She seemed more like a goddess in black than in white. My name is David. I had to go to the city hall that day, so I took the afternoon off from work. On my way back from the city hall, I encountered an elementary school boy playing ball around the area, and he ran into the street chasing the ball. There happened to be a large, thick tree, creating a blind spot for the cars on the street. The traffic wasn't too heavy. The cars on the road were driving fast. I stopped and watched the flow of cars and the boy. This is bad, dangerous, he's going to get hit. I reflexively ran to stop the boy. The sound of a car's sudden braking was heard. Almost simultaneously, I lifted the boy up. Ouch! The hood of the abruptly stopped car hit around my waist. The man driving the car rushed to me in panic. I said I was fine as it was just a slight hit, but the man, completely flustered, called an ambulance. And thus, I was transported to this hospital by an ambulance for the first time in my life. There were no visible injuries, but I underwent X-ray and MRI examinations. While waiting for the results, the boy whom I had shielded was brought to the hospital by his mother. The boy must have been scolded severely by his mother. With a face about to cry, he apologized to me repeatedly, asking if I was hurt. "I'm fine, I'm indestructible, but remember, never run onto the road again. Understand? The action I took in the spur of the moment prevented a major accident, and I'm being thanked for it." With that thought, the pain in my waist where the cars had grazed felt like nothing, and I was in high spirits. Then a young female nurse who came to call me for the examination results said to the boy, "You're lucky, saved by a handsome man," and gave me a smiling face. Truly an angel in white. It seemed like there were countless twinkling stars around her smile. Right after that, came that goddess in black. There were absolutely no twinkling stars, and it seemed like she had thick, dark storm clouds on her back as she treated me coldly. "David, about this weekend?" "Not again. I told you I'm good." I declined an invitation from my junior at work, who is obsessed with events for singles. About 6 months ago, this junior asked me to join him as he didn't want to go alone, and I went to an event for singles just once. I wasn't interested to begin with, and indeed, I didn't meet anyone special. It wasn't fun at all. I too think it's about time to settle down since I'm getting older. But I would prefer a more natural encounter. Indeed, I yearned for meeting someone, but I had no desire to attend another event for singles. Besides, at this time, I had someone on my mind. The female doctor who was cold to me. Her aloofness only piqued my interest more. I couldn't help but dwell on it. "Well, I don't think it's likely, but in the case of a traffic accident, symptoms like whiplash sometimes appear later, so if that happens, make sure to get checked out at some orthopedic clinic." I remembered her words as I touched the part of my waist where the cars had grazed. It was still a bit painful. "All right, it's not completely healed. In that case, why not go and get it checked?" Time is of the essence. The next day, I went to see her for a consultation. "Oh, the one from the other day, are you not feeling well?" the amiable nurse addressed me. I managed a wry smile and asked her the important question. "Is the doctor who's been seeing me married?" "If you're talking about Dr. Emma, she's single." "Why do you ask?" I did a silent fist pump and said I was just curious since a female orthopedic surgeon is rare. I was sweating, hoping she didn't see through my ulterior motive. Just then, my name, David, was called. When I entered the consultation room, she was checking my medical record on the computer. "What brings you here?" "My waist is still hurting from the accident." She looked at the record again. "It shouldn't be a big deal." She casually suggested another checkup if I was still worried. I hesitated, and she remarked, "Is this your first traffic accident? Some patients overreact, especially the timid ones." She was half smirking, a bit condescending. I got a little annoyed. "But it still hurts. I can prescribe some painkillers." She stared at me as she said this. "It really isn't a big deal. If you don't believe me, why not get a second opinion from another hospital?" I had no choice but to back off. That weekend, I was at my regular bar, having a drink with the bar owner. I wonder if female doctors usually marry other doctors. The bar owner stopped chopping and looked puzzled. I continued, partly talking to myself. "They earn more, are smarter, and have strong personalities and high pride. They're out of reach for an average office worker like me." As I muttered, the bar owner asked, "So, you want to date a female doctor?" "No, not at all. It's just a general opinion. Just a general opinion." As I responded, I realized my mind was full of thoughts about her. She doesn't give me the time of day, treating me with nothing but coldness. But the colder I'm treated, the more the fire within me burns. Am I the type of guy who likes such treatment? As I'm pondering this, my phone starts ringing. It's a picture message from my junior who loves matchmaking parties. He sent me photos he took at a matchmaking party he attended that day. Seeing how desperate he was to get married made me feel pitiful, realizing I'm not that different. After seeing the photos he sent, suddenly the idea of drinking alone at the bar seemed less appealing. It had just gone past 7 in the evening, but I paid the bill and headed home. Then, just as I left the bar, a woman's high-pitched voice called out to me. I looked in the direction of the voice and saw a young girl smiling at me. I didn't know who she was. I thought she was calling out to me, but I looked around to see if it was someone else. There was no one else standing still. "How are you feeling?" Then, I finally recognized her. It was that friendly nurse. "Oh, I hardly recognized you. I thought you were just some girl." A white nurse coat is powerful. It can turn any girl into an angel. She also lived around here, so we walked together, making small talk. "By the way, is Dr. Emma always like that?" I brought her up. "Dr. Emma, like what?" "Just between us. She seems kind of aloof and hard to approach." To her surprise, I was the first patient to describe her that way. Not only is she an excellent doctor, but she's also friendly and popular among the patients. I listened while nodding, but I just couldn't accept it. "Well, I'm going this way." I watched the angel without a white uniform walking away. So she's only cold to me. Could it be she's playing hard to get? My thought process was unusually optimistic. The pain in my back disappeared before I finished the painkillers she prescribed, and there was no new symptom. So, I lost the chance to visit her clinic. However, I noticed the chain on my seldom used bike, parked at the apartment complex, had wristed. I decided to ride it for a test and pedaled for the first time in a while. The chain made some noise, but there were no serious issues. The bigger problem was the flat tires. And the brakes wasn't working well, so I decided to take it to a bike shop. I rode the bike. I reached an intersection. The light was changing from green to yellow. The bike shop was just across the intersection. I was too lazy to stop, so I pedaled into the intersection. And I collided with a turning vehicle perfectly. Thanks to the other car's abrupt braking, it didn't end up in a major incident. I scraped my arm when I fell, but it was just a minor bleed. The leg I band wasn't in much pain either. The female driver who got out of the car went pale and offered to call an ambulance. But I was the one who rode recklessly, and it's just a scrape, so I refused. Afterward, we called the police and dealt with the accident. I didn't get home until the evening. I shouldn't have been riding a bicycle. I should have left the rusty chain as it was. Regret was all that came to my mind. Maybe because of that, I had no appetite and felt down. My mind was foggy, probably exhausted from the police inquiry and stuff. The leg that got hit started throbbing in pain. So, I decided to go to bed early and promptly got in bed. The next morning, I woke up when a sharp pain ran through my leg as I rolled over. I felt nauseous and out of sorts. The symptoms, like whiplash, might appear later in case of a traffic accident. Her voice echoed in my mind. Is this it? Is this what she meant? I have no choice but to go to the hospital. So, I called in sick to work and went to her clinic. How can I help you today? When I staggered into the consultation room, she, who was looking at her computer, hurriedly stood up and supported me. Then, she gently led me to the examination bed. I was riding a bicycle yesterday and got hit by a car. I explained the situation and how the pain in my leg worsened this morning. and that I felt nauseous. "Let's get you tested right away." Her voice was filled with a kindness that wrapped around one's heart, unlike any I had heard before. Her usual cold demeanor had done a complete 180. Could it be that I'm seriously injured, need major surgery, or have after effects? On her advice, I was admitted to the hospital immediately. I asked my colleague, who loved events for singles, to bring the minimum necessary belongings for my home. Then, she appeared in the hospital room to inform me of the X-ray and MRI results. I had a mild concussion and bruises all over. The concussion is very mild. A neurosurgeon has confirmed there's nothing to worry about. There were bruises other than on your leg, but there's no abnormality in any bones. You're lucky. All my worries about surgery and after effects were unfounded. With this in mind, I asked, "Really?" Then she said, "Really," and gave me a kind smile. Seeing her face, my heart rate soared. She was most concerned about the severely bruised and swollen right leg. If the pain is too much and walking alone is difficult, she suggested staying in the hospital for about a week to observe the progress. Of course, I followed her advice. "Is the female doctor who just left your assigned doctor, David?" When she left the hospital room, my company's junior asked. When I responded yes, my colleague crossed his arms and fell into thought. When I asked what's wrong, he said, "I feel like I've met her somewhere before." My injury was healing well, and I was told I could be discharged as planned. There was no need for any special rehab, but I had to visit the hospital once a month for the time being. On the day of discharge, while I was packing my belongings in my room, she came to see me. "You're being discharged today. Congratulations. Thank you for everything." As I bowed my head, she, seeming a bit shy, greeted me with a subtle smile. I was deeply moved by this, and I couldn't help but blurt out, "Actually, at first, I thought this wasn't going to work." "What do you mean by not going to work? What wasn't going to work?" She looked at me with surprise. "I mean, the compatibility with you. Why did you think we wouldn't get along? Can you tell me why?" I talked while scratching my head, feeling awkward. When I was first brought in by the ambulance, her attitude seemed cold. According to a female nurse I talked to later, apparently, I was one of the very few people she treated like that. "I see." She stopped mid-sentence and looked around the room. Then, leaning close to my ear, she whispered softly, "I have a break coming up soon, so once you're ready, maybe we could meet in the courtyard." "Well, okay." I looked at her suspiciously, and she implied she had something to say that she didn't want the other patients to hear. "So, it's not good here. Let's continue our talk there, okay? What is this conversation going to be about?" Hope and anxiety were swirling inside me. After completing the discharge procedures, I went to the courtyard where she was waiting during her break. As I approached her on the bench, she opened her mouth with a bitter smile. "I'm the one who's not good. Mixing personal feelings when examining patients." "Personal feelings?" When I asked back, she nodded and explained. "Even though I had gotten into a car accident protecting a child and was injured, I joked about being indestructible because I had only minor injuries, and that had angered her." Hearing this, I felt like I understood. Doctors are dealing with patients brought in by ambulances with all they have. Her being angry at me for being lighthearted was just the other side of that. I reflected on my behavior. I felt bad and remained silent. Then, she suddenly changed her tone and said jokingly, mocking herself, "And this is a bit embarrassing, but when you kept calling me doctor, I realized." Realized what? Don't you remember that matchmaking party? My mind was filled with question marks. The only matchmaking party I remember was the one I attended about 6 months ago as a favor to my junior. During the talk time, It was customary for both men and women to ask each other, "What do you do?" I plainly said, "I'm a doctor." Then, I got some weird looks. Jokingly, people started saying things like, "I've been having some pain here," or suddenly started calling me doctor, doctor. Hearing this, I remembered. At that matchmaking party back then, I was told by my junior that there was a female doctor, and for fun, I kept calling her doc and teased her quite a bit. That time, "Oh, was it you, Dr. Emma?" When I asked, she nodded. Her makeup and vibe were totally different, and I hadn't realized it until that moment. Or maybe, just like the angels in white coats, I thought it might be the magic of the white coat. She remembered the humiliation from that party and acted cold towards me. I'm sorry about that, but when doctors are off duty, we're just normal women. Seems like I'm professional and personal. Since then, I meet her once a month for consultations. At the same time, I meet her 2 or 3 times a week, seeing her as just a woman. Outside the hospital. Just the other day, I took her to my regular bar for the first time. The bar owner whispered in my ear, asking what her job was. When I replied she was a doctor, he nodded several times. What happened?" she asked me, looking puzzled. So, I explained. I had previously discussed with the bar owner whether a doctor would marry another doctor or wouldn't consider a regular guy like me. She chuckled. I asked her, "As a matter of fact, what do you think?" "It depends on the individual, doesn't it? Some doctors marry other doctors, and some don't. It seems there are people who are set on marrying doctors, but it isn't necessarily the case. Do you mind not marrying a doctor? I don't worry about the job. I don't have to marry a doctor. If I did, I wouldn't be here with you." Does that mean? I couldn't help but look at her. She, with an innocent face, picked up the menu. I was foolish to think aiming for a female doctor was aiming too high. Having high aspirations in love is what brought her and me together. And it's what will keep her and me together moving forward. How was the story today? Pressing the subscribe and like button will encourage more productions. Looking forward to your comments. See you in the next video.